But anyway, that was when Dennis, we were into the Kingston Trio. That was his great love, and we met the Kingston Trio. Dennis had all these fabulous ideas for album covers that we so that was our in to meet the Kingston Trio, and we thought that had been a great thing. Well, then I went to the University of Michigan with Dennis, and we got in the same fraternity together. So more of Dennis's, I think at that point Dennis was really grasping. He had no idea that he was going to be a writer. He had no idea what he was going to do in life. But you could see his brother John was going into law school, and it was being a big success at Dartmouth. And Dennis and I weren't doing too much at the time. And so Dennis got into accounting. I'll tell you, you had to be there for this. You had to be there when you saw your father come up. But anyway, Dennis had gone into accounting, and he was confused. Terribly confused. And his greatest, I think his most dramatic thing, he took the first accounting exam. And Dennis realized halfway through it that he just did not know anything. And he got up about 20 minutes or 30 minutes into the exam and packed his stuff up and took the paper up to the amazement of everybody. He walked in front of the entire class and laid down the blue book, okay? And walked out, and it was totally empty. So, at that point, Dennis became, and I don't know if how he struck you in his career, but Dennis was a wild man. He really became, I mean, he was wild, he always was, and he got even wilder in college. He lived at a place called the Gold Door. They had painted this door gold, and he did paint the town, as John was saying, but there's one other story about that. When Dennis was walking around, he was painted maize, and Doug was painted blue, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning after they painted all these little parking meters. They hit the mailbox, by the way, and they were on the federal property that time. And I remember he was standing behind a bush, he told me, at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and Doug looked down, Doug Brown looked down, and he says, "What are we going to do?" There's a police car, and the police car was going around, and Dennis looked up and he said, "Just look natural." Well, then Dennis and I also went our first trip to Europe together. And that was another great experience. We'd planned that trip for over a year, and that was the first time Dennis, got to Paris. We got to Italy. We met my relatives for the first time, and we met his cousin Frank, in fact, which was one of the highlights of our trip. And one of the funny things, he used to kind of rag on me for. This came to me this morning. I remember that he used to rag on me because, we would, in the evening, we didn't have a lot to do, and we'd meet young ladies, and we'd date and things like that over there. And Dennis was always on me that, that was too concerned, and I wasn't concerned enough about the culture and all the other things that were going on. Until I found out that Dennis had some cards made up that he was from Life magazine. And he was using it on this young ladies at the bar. And I wondered, this guy is so smooth. He always has dates. I couldn't figure it out. Then his writing skills came into being. I was breaking up with who's now my wife, Mary Sue. I'd had it with something she had done. So I started writing my letter. Dennis said, "Hey, I'll take over for you." And he wrote the letter, the Mary Sue letter. And Mary Sue said, she says, "You got that letter?" She said, "I knew it couldn't have come from you." It just, So Dennis wrote my breakup letter, and then he's also the best man at our wedding. So. But he also prided himself on his French ability. I don't know. I know he spoke French, and he thought he did anyway. He got me into a lot of trouble once. We were in a bar in France, and we had been skiing, he and I, about 6 days before that. We'd gone to Jungfrau, and we thought we were going to ski. They said it was dangerous, and we said we were from Aspen, and we were experts. And the guy said, "Okay, go at your own risk." So Dennis and I took off. That's a whole other experience. We almost got killed. We did get back, but it was so high, we were out there so long, we were totally burned. I mean, totally burned, which I'd never been that bad. About 3 or 4 days later, we were in France someplace, we're at this bar, and I was talking to this young waitress, and Dennis, she didn't speak English, and I didn't speak any French, but my good friend Dennis, he spoke French. And she started to kiss me, and I kept saying, "I can't, my lips are hurting. Dennis, explain this, And Dennis, he had his book out, and he said, "The lips no good." And she said, No, they're good. And that was my friend, the translator, So then Dennis and I, we wound up in England, and that was a great experience in England. We did see a lot of, we saw plays. We saw, I think, 6 plays and 7 plays in 5 days. All we did when we were in London was see the theater. And Dennis really, he really got into it. And when he came back, he finally met Professor Rowe. And I don't know if any of you must know what Professor Rowe was. He was Arthur Miller's mentor. And Dennis wrote a short story. And I think it might have even been about the Divine Child, I'm not sure, but he looked at it and said, you know, this dialogue is just incredible. And for the first time, Dennis started to see a future. He was encouraged, and it was thanks to Professor Rowe that Dennis became the playwright that he became. And he finally wound up winning the Hopwood Awards. And Dennis was on fire at that point. When he finally won that, his father was proud, his mother was proud, his brother was proud, and he had finally, somehow, he'd seen the light, and he was heading in that direction. From there he went to Carnegie, and a lot of you know him at Carnegie and on into New York, and I'll just let other people talk about that experience. I saw every play Dennis ever did. I was here in this theater. I never missed a thing that he did. I think just in general reflection, you know, I think back, he was very, very great with his gifts. He gave us books, news, movies. He was great to my children. To be my friend, he became my wife's friend. He became all my children's friend. 3 or 4 years ago, my daughter was getting ready to go to Italy, and it was like the circle was closing because we had, of course, gone on this trip, and here my young daughter was going, and he sent a present. He said, "Now this can't be opened until the night before the trip." And so we waited. We got there about 2 weeks before, and then the night before the trip, we opened it up, and it was this beautiful leather-bound, green leather-bound diary, and it said Heidi Ewing, Italy, 1987. And it's a beautiful gift that he'd given her, and he said, wrote on the inside, "I want you to fill every page with notes as he had done on our trip." And she did fill them up. I think just the rest of our life, we always looked out for each other, as good friends should. And I visited him several times. I saw him in Los Angeles in June. I saw him throughout the year. I saw him throughout the summer, and I finally saw him in December. And to the end, I thought Dennis was quite the romantic. I was in New York, I think, about 2 weeks before Christmas, after he'd gotten out of the hospital. And we started talking about the possibility he might die. And of course, he sat there and he said, "Well," he said, "I don't want to go just like this." He said, "I think I want to do is commit suicide or something." He says, "But I need to have a big cliff to jump off of or something." So we talked about these creative ways somebody could commit suicide. We spent a couple hours on that subject for a while. And it's kind of funny, the light of our friendship, I guess, shone so bright as these other things were becoming so dark. And I couldn't help but think back to the early days we used to sit there and talk about getting on a train and the great trips that we were going to take together. I had something that I came across that I kind of thought said a lot about Dennis, and I kind of ended up by saying, "Who lives most? We live in deeds, not years. In thoughts, not breaths. In feelings, not in figures on a dial. We should count time by heartthrobs. He most lives who thinks most, feels the noblest, acts the best."